Hello everyone, and welcome to Just a Gearhead. Today's episode we're going to do some more work on the 77 Century. Stay tuned. Alright, so like I said, we're going to continue working on the 77 Century. First off, I got myself some door seals for around the bottom of the door. I'm going to throw those on. I had a previous video, which I did a bunch of seals on both of the Ranchero and the 77 Century. I'll put a link up here probably for it. So this one we're probably just going to do real quick and fast forward most of it, and then we'll get to some other. This window is loose, it kind of pops around. Now, to fix that, supposedly I just need this little piece, and it goes on like a little bar in there, and runs on a track back and forth here. And that's supposed to keep the window from flopping around. It's just a window track guide. Now, I think this is the right one, according to Rock Auto it is. You're probably not going to be able to see anything, so I'm just going to slip this in there, see if I can get it to line up on the track. Okay, you can kind of see that little bar with that little nub there. The plastic piece is supposed to go on that and then sit in this track. So hopefully we can get it on there and get it into that track. Okay, let go. Yeah, it looks like it stayed. Okay. Let's see if it... Can you reach the switch? It's the front switch.
Up towards me?
No, the other switch. In either direction. Okay, down. Up, up, up.
Nope.
Okay, try up again. Yeah, it's sticky. I don't think it wants to flop around anymore.
It's not as bad. It's not supported all the way though.
Let me see here. Okay, look out. Up still really sucks. Eventually we might have to get new motors.
Yes. I suspect so.
But at least it doesn't fall back and forth.
Yes, so that's an improvement.
Okay, well, that's fixed.
Okay,
Yay.
I'm gonna go back to the garden.
Right. Now that we got the window working a bit better, it's not flopping back and forth at the very least. These motors are pretty old, but so down the road I probably will have to replace these. But for now, they still kind of do the job. There's a bracket that was on here. I put it on the other side because I wasn't sure if I was going to get this side done today. I don't have the other one, so for now we're just going to have to roll without that. Let's see here. The panel that was for down here is in really rough shape, so I had stopped at a pick and pull type place. I think it's I pull, you pull, and got this one. It's not great, but it'll do until I can afford to buy good ones. And it had a window crank instead of the power windows, but there's a little dotted line here, which should show you the rectangle you need to cut out to put this in. So we're going to cut that real quick, and then we're going to install this. I don't know how many little clips I have, but there's spots here for screws on this one, so hopefully they line up with some holes or something, and it'll help hold it on. So yeah, get to cutting that out, and where did I put my knife? There it is. After some fighting and cursing and swearing, I managed to get it kind of together. It's not great, but this upper panel is so beat up, there's not much I can do about it at the moment. But the windows do work. It's a little slow, doesn't flop around, the panels are on, it looks a little bit better than it did just being a bare door. And hopefully it'll rattle a little less as I go down the road. Maybe not, but we'll see. So I'll figure out what we're going to do next. Next, I think we're going to play with this. So I wanted a set of little gauges, oil temp or water temp, volts, and oil pressure. So I went online and went on Amazon and found the smallest set I could get. They're a Bosch series. I don't know what product number they are, but if I figure it out, maybe I'll put it on the screen. But they're the littlest ones I could find. I think they say they're 1 3/4 or 1.5 inches, something like that. So yeah, got those, and then I was looking for a place to install them. There's a little cubby hole over here that when I put the plate up to it, it was almost perfect. I don't like the blue, so I have a black one as well. So as you can see, this was almost perfect for that spot. If it had been a full rectangle, it probably would have been perfect. But, so I made this. Actually took me 2 tries to make this. So I started with a piece of sheet metal, just some stuff I had kicking around. I cut it a little big so I had plenty to work with. I then covered the metal with just some painter's masking tape. This just made it easier for me to draw out the pattern on. I then used the factory bezel that came with the gauges and put that on top of my piece of metal and kind of centered it up so that I could use it as a reference for the position of the holes for the gauges. I then marked out a line to work off of, flipped the bezel over, and then traced in the circles for the openings for the gauges. So this is where I kind of made a bit of a mistake. I used the factory bezel to create the rectangle or the outer rectangle for the new bezel. This actually made it a little too big for the opening. Here I am just locating the center of each of the circles so I can cut them out with a hole saw. This is after I've cut out the holes with a hole saw. I'm just test fitting one of the gauges to see if it'll fit okay. The hole's a tiny bit bigger than I would like, but the gauge seems to fit okay. The 2 little holes you see on each end, that was from me screwing the piece of metal to a piece of 2x4 to make it easier to cut the hole out. So I have now trimmed it back with a pair of snips to just leaving enough that I can fold over so that there is some strength to the edges and it'll something to hold it in place. I'm just going to use a pair of vice grips that are designed for bending metal. Should give me a fairly nice straight line. The sides were easy because it fit over the whole piece. The long ones I had to do a section at a time and work myself back and forth. I'm cutting off the corners on the little flaps because the cubby hole angles inwards. So if the corners were straight, they would get caught and it wouldn't push in far enough. So I'm just trimming off the corners so it fits in a bit better. Here I am, I'm test fitting the bezel into the cubby hole. This is actually the second one I made. So it fits quite nicely. The little flaps on the sides create enough pressure that it can just be kind of pressure fit in place. So I think it should look pretty good. I'm just giving it a quick sand with, I think it's some 320 sanding paper, just because I decided to paint it. I threw on a quick coat of just some Rust-Oleum primer. I then threw on a couple of coats of Rust-Oleum's satin black. I figured the satin finish would look better in the dash and would also help hide imperfections. I also decided to throw on a couple of coats of satin clear. I figured the clear might give it a little bit more protection. So yeah, so that's how I made this. The reason it took me 2 tries is this is smaller on this side than it is on this side. The first one I made was just a rectangle and it didn't quite fit. So this one's been adjusted to fit like so. And quickly stick one of these in there so you can see. So this is the oil pressure. So yeah, I'll have 3 of those. So first, since I like this one better than the blue one, we're going to pull the blue one off. It should just pop out. It's just held in by clips. and then we'll look into actually installing these. Oh, that was easier than I thought. So yeah. Oh, also, on the black one, I cut the back of the cubby hole off so that I can run the wires through it. And there's a nice big open spot here. Now I just got to figure out how I'm going to get all the wiring from here under the hood. The oil pressure one came with the plastic line. I know people have mixed feelings about the plastic line, but we're going to use that for now. The volt one is obviously just a positive and a negative lead, and the temperature one has the sensor and wire attached to it, which I'm hoping is long enough because on the engine, the sending spot, or the spot this should go into, is way at the front of the motor. So we will see if that will fit or make the length. But that I guess it depends on where I put the hole in the firewall, or where I can figure out to put this through the firewall. Yeah. It says it's supposed to be 6 feet. I think it's a little shorter than 6 feet, but we will see. And also I have to figure out where I am tapping in for the oil pressure. Anyways, I'll figure out what I want to do first and get back to you. So I've stuck the black bezel, or whatever you want to call it, dash piece in place. As you can see, I still got the big open hole there. Just clips in with, or pushes in and clips in with those little metal clips on the back of it, or whatever. Yeah. And also, I drilled a hole right down there to pass everything through. I used a step bit on a drill. I just double checked to make sure there was nothing on the other side of it. I probably will put a grommet or something in there afterwards, or there's a trick you can do with cutting a piece of vacuum line to put on. I just don't have a spare vacuum line right now. So, but for now, we can just pass stuff through it, and I can always put tape around it or something if I really feel that's necessary. The only one I'm concerned about is that oil line. I don't want it to wear on the metal and possibly put a hole in it. So yeah, so we'll probably have to put the gauges on that little bezel and then start feeding stuff through wires and stuff. So each of these little gauges comes with its own instruction booklet. We'll start with the volts. It's going to put the volts all the way over on the closest to the door, because it has the least amount of stuff that comes out the back of it. These little nuts here, I think they're 5/16. Yes. And this is the little retainer. And each gauge also comes with its own little light bulb, and there's a whole bunch of different hardware in here, different adapters for the temperature sender, different adapters for the fuel pressure, as soon as I find out where that is, and then extra washers and screws and stuff. It does suggest to put a washer between each nut. Oh, that's for when we connect the actual wires to it. Alright, but for now, we just need to make sure that's where I want to go. Alright, so we'll put the volts in there. bring you back once I've gotten this further along or got something to show you. All right, so skip ahead. I got it pretty much installed. The gauges are held in with these little brackets here, with these little nuts on these posts. So they hold them into the frame. The lights, which are these 3 black ones here, there's little light bulbs inside of those. I tied them all together, tied it into the negative on the voltmeter and to the keyed power on the voltmeter. So technically these bulbs are on constantly, not just when the dash comes on, but as soon as the key comes on, these bulbs come on, which I'm okay with. And yeah, this gauge is, the red one goes to keyed power, the black one goes to a good ground. This is the oil pressure feed from the engine. It goes into a little fitting on the back of the gauge there. And this is the temperature one, and that was already pre-pressed into the gauge. So yeah, that is pretty much how I hooked it up. And the little bracket I made just kind of presses in. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, there's a good shot. There's a good shot. Yeah, so I think it looks pretty good. It fits pretty good. It's not perfect. It's in pretty good, so I don't think it'll flop around at all when the car's moving or anything like that. This hole came out a tiny bit big. You can kind of see the gauge is pushed in a tiny bit, but I didn't have the perfect size hole saw for these, but it's barely noticeable. But right now the oil pressure gauge is not hooked up because I hooked up the hose to the back of it. I tightened down the nut and everything, and then I was running out the wire, or the hose I mean. I got a kink in it, you can see it there. So I don't trust this not to leak anymore, so I'm going to have to get a new line and a new fitting probably, because this one's been crushed, before I can hook this back up. But the temperature gauge, as you can see, is already working, and the voltmeter works, and I'll just give it a quick turn on. There you can see, voltmeter's working, temperature gauge is working. I think they look pretty good in that dash. So yeah, there we go. Figured I'd show you this. So there's my hole, and right now this is that coiled line for the temperature sender for the gauge. It goes up into there where the old one was for the idiot light on the dash, I guess, or just the light that it had on the dash. So yeah, the line did reach all the way to the front of the motor, which is good. I was a little concerned, it looks a little short, but I think I even have a little bit of slack. I got myself the replacement plastic line, and I connected it to the block down there, which is kind of below the distributor, and that's where the oil pressure light was hooked up to. So I used a couple of the fittings that came with the line, hooked up there. It runs up between the alternator and the block. Where did it go? There it is. So it comes up between the block and the alternator, and everything comes up here, meets up with the heat temp sender, and then it runs around along there, and then in through the firewall over there, and into the gauge and the dash. I am going to eventually cut a little piece of hose or something and put in that hole just to protect it, but for now it seems to be doing okay. I zip tied it to a couple places on the heat sense sender, just so I keep it from rubbing on anything. But yeah, so it's all hooked up behind here. That little hose just connects to the back of the gauge with another fitting. So we're going to give it a start up. And lots of oil pressure. Alright, so that's a couple more things off the checklist for the 77 Century. I did order a tack for it as well, but it was this cheapy little Chinese thing that was broken when I got it. So that's going back, and I'm going to have to see if I can find something else. Probably something a little bit better, a little bigger probably. But anyways, that'll be it for this episode of Just a Gearhead. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.